All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about the bass flu, or better known as the fall turnover. So some people get the turnover mixed up with the transition. We're kind of going to cover every bit of that because this is going on in your lakes, rivers. It may already happened and you may not even know it, but either way, you know, watching this video, you'll be prepared for it for when it does happen, or if it happens later on down the road or before, whatever, you'll kind of get an idea of what happened. But either way, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. You know, if you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. If you have any questions or anything to add, drop a comment down below. I love talking fishing with you guys. Love hearing, you know, what's going on in your area, wherever you're from, whatever lakes you fish, whatever rivers you fish, the whole 9 yards. I really appreciate it. But either way, so the fall turnover, this is a time when that bottom temperature, what we know is the thermocline down here, okay? So you'll see that thermocline, it's just dead oxygen, right? And that water's a little bit cooler above it, and then as it goes up, it starts getting, you know, up to the surface temp of what the water is. What happens is it changes, it flips, okay? So when it flips, that water, that thermocline, all that stuff, the sediment from the bottom comes up and mixes throughout your lake or river system. When this happens, it actually depletes oxygen levels, not necessarily like drains all the oxygen out of the water, but it drops the quality of the oxygen throughout that lake where these fish are used to hanging out. So they get in a little funk. And what I mean by the funk is they're just kind of schooled up or hanging around certain areas, and they're not really committing to anything. You can't really get them to bite moving baits. You can't really get them to bite finesse baits, and it's a really, really tough time to try and target and catch those fish. Although when you get ready to target those fish, let's say you find them in that 15, 20, 25, 30 foot range, whatever the case may be, you know, I don't advise spending a lot of time on those fish. If you can't get them to actively feed pretty quickly, when I say quickly, you know, 10 to 12 casts, you can't really get them to commit to anything. I suggest moving because you're going to bump into some eventually that, you know, will want to bite. Now, as I said, getting these fish to bite can be extremely difficult. I mean, it's really annoying in my opinion, because you know you'll see the fish or find the fish and they just kind of come up and bump it. It's not like they're trying to eat it. It's just trying to like stun it or just something. They're ill is what it seems like. It seems like they're kind of sick. You know, when you get sick, you don't necessarily want to eat, get up out of bed, or really do anything, and that's kind of how these fish act. And the reason for that is, in my opinion, is, you know, the water qualities went down, the oxygen levels are dropped down, the water gets this weird stain to it, and it's not even like a muddy stain, it's just kind of like just nasty filth. And a lot of times going to your lake, like there's certain lakes and rivers that I fish around where I fish, you can get there and you will smell it. You know, one of the reservoirs that I fish, when it turns over, it just stinks. It smells horrible. You know what's going on. You can see it in the water. It's just sediment rotating off the bottom and coming to the surface, and it's disgusting. Those fish will drop down way below that in that 15-foot mark. Now, we actually had some of this happen in spring. This happens in the spring also. So, you know, this video is not just for the fall, but this will happen in the spring also. I can't give you a direct water temperature, a direct time that it happens. It's just kind of like random. I've never found like, oh, well, the water temperature is, you know, 68 degrees, so it's going to turn over. I've never found that to be the case. It's just kind of like random. Happened by chance. Maybe there's, you know, some kind of biologist or something that can, you know, give you more information on it. But, you know, I don't really have a way to target when it's going to happen. I just identify it when I see it. Finding the fish is not as difficult as getting those fish to bite. You're typically going to find those fish kind of in the same areas. They're just going to push deeper. So, you know, most of your lakes and stuff, they're going to push 15 foot, you know. Well, I say most of your lakes. I don't know exactly where you live or where you're from or whatever, but most of the lakes around here, they're not super deep besides Lewis Smith. Lewis Smith, they're going to push deeper. Me personally, I haven't really noticed any difference on Lewis Smith as far as like a turnover. I don't even know if it necessarily happens on every single lake, but you know, other lakes, so shallower lakes, your Gunnersville, your Bear Creek, places like that, I noticed that turnover when it happens. You can smell it, you can kind of tell how the fish are acting and understand like, hey, this is going on. I'm really going to have to finesse these fish and move around a lot. Now, with that being said, there's a couple different options that you can do to kind of, you know, minimize those rough times when the turnover happens. One of the biggest things that I would say to do is to try and get as far away from the turnover as you can. And what I mean by that is it doesn't necessarily happen over the entirety of the lake. So, you know, it may be happening on the north end, but hasn't happened on the south end of the lake yet, or vice versa. Run to different ends of your lake and kind of see what's going on that end. It's kind of like, you know, sometimes the fish can be in a funk closer towards the dam. They're really, really difficult to catch. The water's cleaner, clearer, all that stuff. You run all the way up to the north end, it's a little bit dirtier. Not necessarily nasty water or muddy water, but it's got a little bit of stain to it. The fish are not getting that much pressure. You know, minimizing those effects, you can do that and run necessarily away from, you know, the turnover basically. Now, with that being said, one of the other things that you can do, and it's not necessarily a popular idea, but you know, just embrace it. Just embrace that it's going to be a tough day and say, hey, you know, I'm going to go and try to catch, you know, 2 or 3 decent fish, or, you know, I'm going to try to catch 10 fish today, or whatever the case may be. Set you a goal and just try to aim for that and understand it's just going to be a rough day of fishing. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. Like I said, the fish kind of act sick. Now, the other thing is there's some really good news in all this. It typically doesn't last but like 7 to 10 days, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes less. It really just kind of depends, and I don't know what determines that. But either way, noticing that the turnover is happening, you understand it's going to be a pretty tough day on the water, then you can say, okay, I've got 7 to 10 days or whatever, you know, fish some other areas, you know, whatever other lakes or river systems that's in your area, or, you know, like I said, embrace it and just fish it while it's tough. But understand, once it gets out of that, these fish are going to be pushed back up shallow and they're going to be feeding like crazy. So, you know, it kind of magnifies the bite. They're really, really getting fed up for winter. But, you know, either way, guys, that's the fall turnover. That's how I fish the fall turnover. That's exactly basically what it is. It just kind of depletes that oxygen level in the water, not take it all away, but you know, it kind of mixes with the oxygenated water, the non-oxygenated water does, and you know, it just makes the water quality and stuff go down. These fish act sick. So you may have heard of the bass flu, and that's kind of what the bass flu is. It's the fall turnover, and it happens in spring also. So you know, be aware this video is not just a fall video. This will help you in the spring, coming out of deer season, all that stuff whenever you get back on the water. But either way, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by. If the video helped you at all, a like rating would really help. It goes a long ways, more than you guys know. Also, if you have any questions, anything to add, always drop a comment down below. Make sure to subscribe. I'm always got you covered when it comes to bass fishing. There's all different kinds of stuff on this channel, whatever situation you may be in. Also, you know, everything will be linked down in the description as far as like my sponsor links and stuff like that. Make sure to check those guys out. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll see you next time.